This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
West African mediators failed to reach agreement with Mali's military leaders. Nigerian nurses and pharmacists begin strike days after doctors ended their industrial action. And Yoshihide Suga has been elected Japan's new prime minister. We take a look at some of the challenges he'll now face. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. Huawei working overtime to find ways forward despite U.S. sanctions. And in sports, Africa's women's para-volley sitting champs, Rwanda, eye success at Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. I'm Richard Nta. So good to have you with us. Let's turn our attention to West Africa, where leaders of the Economic Community of West African States have failed to reach an agreement with the Mali Army leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, to hand over to a civilian government. They've been meeting in Ghana with a military group that overthrew President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. The meeting comes after Colonel Assimi Goïta, who led the coup last month, failed to meet a deadline set by ECOWAS to select a civilian leader to head the transition. An agreement was not reached with the army junta to hand over to a civilian government, but ECOWAS leaders say their message is clear.
A civilian president, a civilian prime minister. That has always been the position of ECOWAS. This position has been reiterated repeatedly. There must be a government in place in Bamako that will be able to meet the great challenges facing the Malian people and the Malian nation. As soon as it is possible and that's settled, we will have the beginning of the normalization of the situation.
We head to Japan, where Yoshihide Suga has been formally elected as the country's new prime minister. He secured a win in both chambers of parliament this afternoon. The selection follows Suga's victory in the Liberal Democratic Party leadership elections on Monday. Suga's predecessor, Shinzo Abe, and his cabinet resigned this morning. Abe announced last month he would step down due to health issues. Our correspondent, Grace Lee, is in Tokyo. She has more on the cabinet Suga is set to announce and the challenges they'll face.
In terms of his cabinet, it seems Suga wants to retain most of the key ministers and make sure that there's the same under him and Abe. And this will pretty much ensure a pretty smooth handover, not a lot of political turmoil, something that Suga himself had promised. He will be keeping the finance minister, the defense minister, foreign minister Taro Kono will be switching jobs, staying under Suga, but as the minister in charge of administrative reform, something Suga has built his platform on as well. Suga and his administration will be looking to ensure a very steady handover, and the public will be looking to them to make sure that COVID-19 doesn't get out of control and that the economic situation stabilizes in the next few months. That will pretty much determine whether or not Suga and his administration will be able to stay longer than Abe's term, which is set to end September 2021. It seems Suga in the past few weeks has been saying that he wants to ensure that they don't have a series of short-lived administrations, something we saw before Abe came into power. And pretty much we'll have to see whether or not he's able to handle COVID-19 and the economic crisis and able to do so.
The United Nations is marking its 75th anniversary at a time of great disruption for the world. The new president of the UN General Assembly opened this year's session on Tuesday. Volkan Bozkır spoke before delegates and raised concerns over the pandemic and poverty.
The pandemic has been used to justify unilateral steps and weaken the rules-based international system. International organizations have been reproached, and the need for international cooperation has been questioned. These criticisms are not baseless, but their conclusions are misguided.
Let's turn our attention to Nigeria, where nurses, laboratory scientists, and pharmacists in government-run hospitals have downed their tools. The health workers are asking for improved working conditions and payment of outstanding salaries. The strike comes just days after doctors in public health institutions called off their own strike action. CGTN's Deji Batmus has that story.
It's more like a harvest of strikes and comes at a time when Nigeria appears to be making progress in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Just after medical doctors in government-run hospitals called off their strike action, the Joint Health Sector Union, the umbrella body of the health workers in the country, announced the commencement of their own strike, making similar demands as the doctors.
These lingering welfare challenges are: 1. Review of implementation of COVID-19 special inducement and hazard allowance. Payment of all withheld salaries of members at FMC Owerri, Jute, LUT, including April and May 2018 salaries. 3. Adjustment of CONHED salary structure. 4. Implementation of ADR consent judgments and other judgments.
The medical workers say this is just a warning strike and would last for 7 days, after which they would resort to a full-blown strike action if the government failed to meet their demands.
Our healthcare service deliverers has been taken for weakness because our commitment to resolving issues through dialogue has been taken for cowardice.
The government is in talks with the union and has asked the workers to return to work while the negotiation continues.
And I use this opportunity to appeal to Johesu to suspend their industrial action and go into negotiation so as not to erode the gains we have made since in the healthcare delivery area. The Federal Ministry of Health is doing all it can and all within its power to expedite processes that address the bones of contention.
For now, with the exception of doctors, all medical workers in government-owned hospitals are on strike. Many fear that could reverse the gains that have been made in the fight against the pandemic.
This is definitely not the time to go on strike. I appeal to the leadership to have a rethink of their position currently, because it is as good as saying, let the whole poor masses of Nigeria go to die.
The union is standing its ground, insisting it wants its members to get a similar treatment as the doctors. Anything short of that, they say, will not be acceptable. Deji Batmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
In South Africa, the ongoing strike by funeral undertakers hits its third and last day today. These strikers were yesterday demonstrating outside South Africa's biggest hospital. In the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, the funeral industry has made several changes to regulations and procedures. Angry workers say the changes have made it harder for small, black-owned businesses to operate. South Africa's health ministry has warned that the strike poses a public health risk to the country. The nation has seen over 650,000 confirmed coronavirus cases and more than 15,000 deaths.
We're fighting the government. It's a sad part whereby our clients has to suffer under the strike, but we need to do it so that government has to listen to us, because now we have to outsource forensic guys to go and pick up the body at home.
People who've actually been paying premiums, we've had to actually let them know that, you know what, we are unable to come into house pickups. Please call the SAPS or the forensics team to actually come and do the house pickups for you. A lot of people could not understand as to why we could not do that.
And after 6 months of interruption, the new academic year has kicked off in Tunisia. More than 2 million students are returning to classrooms. Meanwhile, schools have put measures in place against the spread of the coronavirus.
Hundreds of children have gathered at this primary school in downtown Tunis. Zainab and Ru'a are among 2.2 million pupils who are going back to school amid the second wave of the pandemic. They are well informed about the prevention measures.
Coronavirus will not prevent us from going to school this year. We must protect ourselves. Coronavirus will not disappear. We should learn to cope with the virus.
We must always wash our hands, use hand sanitizers, and wear face masks at school and in class.
Many parents believe that the Tunisian society and the educational system in the country need to cope with a strict health protocol while returning to a normal life.
I'm even happier than my daughter. The kids are fed up. They cannot stay at home indefinitely. We have to find a way to coexist with coronavirus. Otherwise, the education system will collapse. The online courses are useful, but the human contact at school is important for socializing.
Authorities and unions agreed on a gradual resumption of classes in all schools, elementary, middle and high schools, and pledged to provide all means of protection and disinfection.
Pupils are divided into groups. Each kid attends class one day and stays home the next day. Otherwise, we cannot respect social distancing and protect our children.
Dorsaf is an elementary school teacher. This is the 30th new school year in her career. She admits that working amid the pandemic is very challenging.
Explaining the new rules is not difficult because the children are well informed from the media. We are starting this new year in special conditions. I hope it won't be interrupted by the pandemic.
The Tunisian Pediatric Association recommended the normal and uninterrupted return to school of all children. The association justifies this decision by national and international epidemiological data showing that children play a weak role in the spread of infection, whether from child to child or from child to adult. The COVID-19 task force in Tunisia has revealed that the 248 children who tested positive in the last 6 months were all asymptomatic and none of them were hospitalized. Therefore, the new school year has been welcomed by over 2.2 million children and their parents, as well as the educational and administrative staff. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
The News Hour and our coverage continues on Africa Live. Here is a look at what's ahead. The WWF warns that human action is altering the natural world. We bring you the details. And Kenya's game rangers involve communities to reduce ivory poaching.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Adnan Shawishi, Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg,
Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. The WWF's Living Planet Report 2020 has sounded a planetary health warning with published research that shows that 2/3 decline in global wildlife in under 50 years. The report makes a number of key findings, including the impact of large-scale environmental destruction on animal populations, as well as unsustainable food production practices around the world. Here is CGTN's Travis Andrews with more.
From overfishing to deforestation, poaching to the illegal trade in wildlife, the negative impact human activity is having on the natural world is clear to see, and often destructive. Global biodiversity is being lost at an alarming rate, which not only threatens the long-term survival of thousands of animal species, but human health and well-being. That is among the key findings of the WWF's latest Living Planet report, which paints a fairly grim view on the state of the natural world.
So this decline in biodiversity has implications for life on Earth. As humans, we really see nature as our means of survival. Nature provides us with food, fresh water, clean air, and so it's critically important that we take care of nature. And so the loss of biodiversity is of enormous concern, and it's further compounded by climate change.
The report tracks around 4,000 vertebrate species and over 20,000 populations, and through the contribution of 125 world experts, discovered a species decline of some 4% every year since 1970. According to the report, the loss in biodiversity is also linked to unsustainable food production and large-scale deforestation, which is done to clear the way for agricultural activities.
Consuming far more than what nature can provide. With the loss of food, we could definitely increase the amount of food available to people simply by addressing the fact that we have up to a third of our food lost or wasted. And that's along the full supply chain, from production all the way through to consumption. So these challenges need to be tackled in order to address biodiversity loss.
Climate change is another issue highlighted as a contributing factor to the loss of biodiversity. But the report also points to the possibility of change through more ambitious conservational efforts and by demanding suitable production practices when it comes to the global supply of food. Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
The illicit international trade in ivory has for many years led to increased poaching targeting elephants in Kenya. However, conservationists say poaching has reduced in recent years thanks to efforts to involve communities living around game parks and conservancies in protecting the animals. CGTN's Enoch Sekolia reports on how people in Samburu County are taking care of orphaned elephants.
Hey. Behind these locked gates and high walls are over 30 orphaned elephants. Their mothers were either killed by poachers, hunger, or natural causes. In Samburu, Kenya, elephants are being hunted. Poachers kill them for their valuable tasks. Killing mother elephants presents a double tragedy. The largest animal to walk the earth uses much of her famed strength and intelligence to protect and feed her young ones. So what happens when they are gone?
This baby will suffer starvation and sometimes may be attacked by predators such as lions and hyenas.
Longuro is one such baby elephant, named so for being taskless. Longuro was attacked by a hyena upon the death of his mother. He lost his trunk before being rescued by members of the Samburu community who brought him to Reteti Elephant Sanctuary. Every elephant you see here is an orphan.
They really need love and passion, and whenever you give them love, they really give love back. So sometimes even they rumble.
The orphanage was started to ensure that the death of mother elephants does not result in the death of their young ones. But the stakes are high. The protection of these baby elephants depends on these keepers and rangers. They need to convince communities living around parks, reserves, and conservancies that keeping these animals alive is more beneficial to them than any money offered by international criminal networks.
Somebody cannot come all the way from Nairobi or from Mombasa or from any part of the country to come and kill an elephant. They must use the locals who are within the area.
Some of those employed here are former poachers, men who decided to put down their guns and embrace wildlife conservation.
So what is your success story?
We are able to raise so many or several elephant calves that will actually have died.
Since 2016, the outcome has exceeded expectations. Over 30 orphaned elephants have been rescued. 10 of them have been sent back to the wild, having matured enough to battle predators like lions. They eventually join other elephant herds in the wild.
And we've also had a few cases of mortalities, because some of them come in very bad shape, very dehydrated, some with very serious infections. We unfortunately have also lost a few of them.
The Living Planet report released last week shows that the number of elephants in Kenya has gone up. WWF hopes that such efforts could be channeled to the conservation of the endangered species like rhinos, and in Samburu, the reticulated giraffe too. Enoxikolia, CGTN, Samburu, Kenya.
Staying in Kenya, schools have been closed since March due to the COVID-19. Children who depended on going to schools for meals have lost that access. But a nonprofit organization has been working to keep supporting children with nutritious lunches. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has more.
This is the lunch distribution point of Food for Education. The non-profit organization provides nutritious lunches to primary school students from low-income families. Wawira Njiru started the feeding initiative in 2012. But since the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, she has been even more determined to scale up the project and reach more hungry stomachs.
It's really critical that children continue getting the right nutrition. Growing and eating doesn't stop because of a pandemic, and you can't social distance on an empty stomach. So we're ensuring that these children and their families are able to stay safe. We've been providing food packages and hot meals from our first initial kitchen. That has reached over 10,000 children and their families.
Vincent Mkuviza is a Class 5 student in Kenya's Kiambu County. He is now one of 10,000 children who benefit from this initiative outside of school.
When schools were open, things were very good. I feel bad because the schools are now closed. If the school reopens, I would work hard in studying. This food has helped me a lot because my mom doesn't have enough money to buy us food. So this food is very helpful to us.
The organization offers the children wristbands called Tap to Eat. The wristbands are linked to a virtual wallet that parents top up using their smartphones. The children pay 10 Kenya shillings for each meal, while 15 Kenya shillings is subsidized by the organization.
During this COVID-19 outbreak, this program has really helped me a lot to feed my children because I don't have money to buy them food. The school informed us that they will provide the lunch meal for children this time of corona. I have never heard them complain that the food is bad. They always tell me that the food is good.
Recently, Food for Education launched their second central kitchen, which has the capacity of providing 1,000 meals on a daily basis.
We're looking at building another kitchen that will feed 50,000 kids with a goal of reaching 1 million kids a day by 2025. So our expectation is that we continue to grow and continue to feed more kids, building more central kitchens like this, using technology to be able to feed the future of Kenya and of Africa.
Hopefully, once schools reopen, they will be able to enroll more children. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Time now for your business news. Don't go away. Here's a look at the headlines. Huawei unveils its latest operating system, forging forward despite U.S. sanctions. And Nigeria makes a U-turn and opts to regulate the use of digital currencies in the country.
My name is Regina Merindlovo, and I have felt the pain of abuse and sexual violence throughout my life as a woman living with albinism. The condition is shrouded in dangerous myths in Africa. I have made a decision to take back my power and fight against those myths through my online talk show, My Voice Albinism, The New Era. In the second episode of this two-part film, I focus on pulling together my latest show. I faced several challenges with the recent announcement of the COVID virus outbreak. I'm not sure if my guests will show up, but I'm determined to break the silence and use my story to inspire the world.
Hello world, my name is Regina Mary and welcome to another awesome African episode of My Voice Albinism, The New Era.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Welcome back and thanks for tuning in to our business segment here on Africa Live. Computer component makers around the world are bracing themselves for billions of dollars in lost business as they become collateral damage in renewed China-U.S. trade tensions. Expanded sanctions against Chinese telecom firm Huawei took effect Tuesday, and this time its suppliers, who have vital business interests in the U.S. themselves, are also being targeted. Owen Fairclough has more.
The net is tightening even further around Huawei and now its suppliers. New US government sanctions aimed at starving the Chinese telecommunications giant of crucial components have taken effect. And it's not just Huawei being banned from using US semiconductors, chips, software and other technologies, but its suppliers too, unless they obtain a special license.
Huawei has become a byword for the trade and technology battle waged by the Trump administration against China. Washington claims, without offering evidence, that the company's equipment could be used for spying. And these latest restrictions have been applied to stop Huawei getting around existing sanctions by sourcing its components from third parties.
Huawei has constantly denied Washington's claims, but its future appears to be in Europe, opening 50 new stores across the continent by the end of this year. And if this latest ban drives Huawei out of the US completely, industry experts say computer chip and semiconductor manufacturers around the world also stand to lose billions of dollars. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.
As Huawei works to overcome U.S. pressure, it's looking to launch its own operating system, the Harmony OS 2.0. The software was first unveiled last year, but was not ready for commercial use. Last week, Huawei's consumer business CEO Richard Nta said it will be available on Huawei smartphones next year. Huawei Harmony OS is designed for use across multiple devices, including watches, laptops, televisions, and even cars. Huawei plans to launch a beta version to developers for smartphones in December. Now, unlike Android and iOS, Harmony OS is based on a smaller and lighter microkernel, a piece of software that performs basic features of an operating system. This will allow seamless work across different devices, and its architecture can allocate system resources more efficiently by using real-time load analysis. In comparison, Android's mechanism treats all resources the same way, making for slower operation. Another difference, Harmony OS can work on any of Huawei's devices, no matter its function. This will make things easier for developers who will be able to create an app just once and apply it across multiple devices. In contrast, Android and iOS release different operating systems for different types of devices. And Nigeria's Securities and Exchange Commission says it will regulate trade in digital currencies. This is to provide protection for investors and to ensure that transactions are transparent. The agency had in the past declined to recognize digital currencies as legal tender. In 2018, the Central Bank of Nigeria said cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ripples, and Litecoin, among others, weren't regarded as money. But the NSE defended the change, saying that it obliged to regulate, quote, when the character of the investment qualifies as security transactions, close quote, and added that it views cryptocurrencies as exchangeable securities. Well, Egypt has issued a decree to private sector companies and state-owned corporations to install electronic payment terminals on site within the next 6 months. The directive is in line with a law that was passed by Parliament in 2019. It authorizes electronic payments in a bid to fight corruption and curb tax evasion. Here is Yasser Hakim with more details from Cairo.
The Egyptian government is not looking back in its push to implement the e-payments law, which will require all payments to be made online. Already, all banks have established online sites and are urging clients to use the electronic service rather than going to the branches. Citizens have had the option to pay government bills, car license, fees, and similar services from home. But now cashless payments will be imposed on other sectors too.
At the beginning, electronic payments were optional, but slowly they were trying to make it an obligation. The first phase has been successfully tried over the last 3 years. The state issued ATM cards for all government employees to receive their salaries and pay bills. The second phase is to apply electronic payments in shops and all type of purchases and services. Online payment is slowly succeeding as you can now pay from your computer instead of standing in long queues to pay through cash. The third phase is the public and private sector entities. They are going online for internal transactions between them and with the public.
The government believes using the electronic system can help the state monitor the flow of money, and that will help it track money laundering, tax evasion, and illegal transactions. The Central Bank of Egypt has been adamant to apply these measures. This week, 26 car agencies in several cities have been closed down for receiving physical cash from the clients. However, millions of Egyptians, especially in the rural areas, do not have bank accounts and have never dealt with banks. Many also don't have access to strong internet.
There's an aggressive awareness campaign in rural areas to teach the simple grocery seller or housewife how to use these services and to provide bank accounts and ATM cards for them. Later, everyone will be forced to go online. The Ministry of Communication is also improving the internet infrastructure.
Still, there's been a positive reaction from citizens on the adoption of digitization of payment regulations.
It makes life easier and better. We can do a lot of things with it. I use the Visa in most of my purchases. I shop in the supermarket and on the internet and buy books, pay Uber rides and train tickets. It's safer than holding cash.
I used to work in the Gulf countries and all my bills and transactions were through the mobile phone, whether with public or private entities. I also don't need to go to banks, especially with the outbreak of COVID-19, so it's safer.
But it's not an easy process to migrate to a cashless community. A lot of challenges still remain, ranging from infrastructure, awareness, and implementation. The government says the process is going to be gradual and expects to take a few years to cover the whole North African country. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
West Africa's livestock trade is facing a significant drop in activity and a potential economic loss. This comes after the Economic Community of West African States imposed sanctions on Mali following a coup in August. With the neighboring borders closed to Mali, economic trade is facing a decline amid a global pandemic. CGTN's Flonella Lupawana has this report.
The political crisis in Mali has led to an unforeseen economic loss for its trading partners in Guinea, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and Niger. Traders and animal herders are reeling from a shortage caused by the border closures. As a result, some traders in Niger have found alternative ways to keep their businesses going.
It is true that the borders are closed between Mali and Niger, but people still smuggle their cattle in. So whoever has money and wants to buy cattle from the Malian sellers can go there and get them.
The situation is deplorable. Since the closure of the borders, there has been a negative change in our market. This has upset the buying and selling of livestock between our two countries. It's a situation we cannot bear for very long.
Experts say while countries such as Niger and Guinea are less impacted by the border restrictions, the consequences could be more severe for Senegal.
This situation is going to restrict me a lot because most of my cattle come from Mali. With this embargo, I will no longer be able to travel and buy new goods. For the past few days, my livestock have been declining. If this situation continues, I'll be forced to increase the prices.
If Mali doesn't send us any more cattle and prices rise, we won't have enough cattle in Senegal. At the moment, we have enough livestock in reserve, but if this situation persists, we risk suffering the consequences, especially in terms of meat prices in the market. I hope that this situation will improve before it's too late.
Livestock is one of Senegal's priority sectors to boost food security in the country.
Mali is not just any country for Senegal. It's a privileged partner of Senegal.
A complete embargo against Mali would have a considerable and immediate impact on the Senegalese economy.
Traders are now calling for a speedy solution to the crisis in Mali.
This ECOWAS sanction is really detrimental to us and also to livestock sellers in Mali. Our members leave Guinea to go to Mali to buy sheep, cattle and goats to supply the Guinean market. But this is impossible at the moment.
When we go inland to look for livestock, we can spend several days on the road. Here in Guinea, it is not easy to find the cattle together in one place, but it is easier for us to get it from Mali. The Tabaski festival has just ended and it is difficult to find sheep at the moment, so the authorities need to find a solution to this situation.
But Guinea's resilience in livestock trade could lessen the impact of the ECOWAS restrictions. Livestock rearing in Guinea is the second largest rural sector activity after agriculture, providing an income to an estimated 30% of the rural population. According to the United Nations Development Programme, livestock is Mali's third largest export product. It's also a source of income for more than a third of the population there. Solving the country's political tussle could help avert a potential economic crisis that has dented a region already impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Hlonela Lupuwana, CGTN.
Meanwhile, the East Africa Community Partner States have rolled out an electronic cargo and driver COVID-19 test tracking system. It marks the beginning of a ramping up of driver registration and issuance of regionally recognized EAC COVID-19 digital certificates that will go a long way in decongesting traffic and delays across East African border posts. CGTN's Daniel Arab Moy reports on how the new system works.
Levi Obed is a long-distance truck driver. He plies the highway between Rwanda's capital Kigali, through Uganda, and finally to his destination in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Obed, just like thousands of other drivers, has tested the bitter part of bureaucracy while attempting to deliver the much-needed goods across East Africa.
We are suffering here in Malaba a lot. Jump from Kenya up to here can complete 3 days. Then from Malaba to Kampala, you can again complete 3 days because there's a web bridge there in Bustema, which disturbs also a lot.
Between March and May, the time to cross borders in most of our borders had almost gone up 3 times because of the challenges. Drivers could even spend 5, 7, 10 days at the border waiting to cross the border.
The situation has left many East African countries struggling to let essential trade through without the coronavirus slipping in with it. Reliance on manual certificates and delayed test results, coupled with long-distance truckers' ever-growing web of interactions, has not made matters any better. Trademark East Africa, in consultation with the East African Community Secretariat, has now introduced a regional digital COVID-19 certificate and surveillance system that will monitor long-distance truckers' crew and enable COVID-19 contact tracing.
The system is designed in a manner that there is a mobile application. Drivers download the mobile application into their smartphones at the point when they are being registered. They get a username and passwords for that account. It's just a normal application, the way you would have a normal mobile application, and it has 2 basic features. One feature is to enable the driver to monitor their work, so they are assigned jobs by their company to move cargo from point A to point B.
When a driver arrives at a checkpoint or a border crossing or at the port, all they need to do is to open the application and show the Ministry of Health officials their QR code.
The new system will allow partner states to electronically share truck drivers' COVID-19 test results, therefore minimizing need for multiple tests in a single trip.
So a driver starting their journey from Mombasa does not need to start their journey and go and queue in Malaba to wait to be tested. They can be tested down in Mombasa and they begin their journey. All they need to do is, when they arrive at the border, is to demonstrate that they have a valid COVID test result by showing their QR code, which will be scanned and verified by the Ministry of Health officials.
I think the new system will really help us because it has easen up the transportation of our goods and the processing of our letters up there. So I actually for this system because we had lined, like my lorries in Malaba,
Kocholia. I cannot move to that end because of the checking of the status. So I have been very happy because we are now checked only once.
Drivers will no longer have to go and aggregate at the border points since national results are recognized anywhere they are tested in laboratories that are recognized by the WHO across the region. Authorities have so far registered over 40,000 truck drivers, with approximately 6,000 active and using the new digital application system. Uganda has also made it mandatory for drivers crossing into the country to have a valid digital regional certificate or else be subjected to a test. Other East African community countries are expected to follow suit by registering all truck drivers into the new system. Daniel Arap Moi, CGTN, Malaba, Kenya-Uganda border post.
And we are not done just yet. More stories coming your way in just a moment. Here's a look at what's ahead. Survival of the publishing world. A virtual book fair in South Africa helps jumpstart halted literary industry.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Nta, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back to our continued coverage on Africa Live. The world has been propelled into a virtual future as it emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the industries significantly affected has been the publishing field, with new book launches put on hold during the global lockdown. Now, to help kickstart the industry in South Africa, the National Book Fair held a 3-day digital festival for literary lovers. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
I personally love the idea of a book fair and buying on the spot the books I want. But in this new normal, many things have changed, and this year's National Book Fair has had to go ahead virtually. Organizers held a virtual event that has something for everyone.
The format is different, but the story's there, the soul, the pleasure, the laughter, the sadness of that story remains. And so we did exactly the same with this book fair. That although we were going to go virtual and we don't have the tactile and the textured and the physicalness of the book fair, we wanted to bring exactly that same feeling.
The COVID-19 lockdown is a challenging time for authors and book publishers, but this reinvented online book fair is helping writers get back on their feet.
The great thing about it is that everybody has access to the festival itself, because then they can just be on their phone or be in front of the computer. Everybody in every province, because it happens in Joburg, so you have to drive there, and some people can't really make it. So I think this is our new normal.
Everybody's been learning new things. The authors have learned how to present themselves digitally, how to promote themselves. So it's just been a fantastic experience.
The festival runs every year and often tackles pertinent topics brought to the fore by authors and literary lovers. 7
of our sessions deal with the issues of race and identity. Very important in this time, not just in South Africa. South Africa always has these things that it battles with. But in the world, the the Black Lives Matter movement. We also have Breaking Through Shame, who speak to what shame you need to deal with in your communities and in your families.
South Africans aren't big on reading, but with more platforms like this for local writers, it's starting to catch on.
The reading culture has changed so much in the past 5 years, And that's because there's a lot of books that have come from South African writers, young writers, books about, just stories that everybody can relate to. The literature space in South Africa is wide open. People just need to write and come in.
South Africa's Book Week, which preceded the fair, was aptly themed Passport to Tomorrow, a peek into the future for most businesses that now have to adapt to the changing times. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Stay with us on Africa Live. We will see you on the other side of the break with your sports news. Here's a brief look at what's coming your way. Africa women's para volley sitting champs, Rwanda, eye success at Tokyo 2020 Paralympics.